Hello everyone and welcome back to World of Flashpoint. Last week we unfortunately read some of the worst tie-ins that I've ever read. Hopefully the quality is above average this week. I'm certain it will be with the titles that we're going to be covering. One thing I've noticed when covering these Flashpoint books is the inconsistency of the art and how many of these 3-issue miniseries have shifted artists in between issues, which normally isn't a good sign. It means that artists were probably jumping ship for various editorial reasons, disagreements or something. There might have been crunch on some of these issues, so they had to get other artists to do it because the other artists were too busy. Something was going on because the Deathstroke one has Joe Bennett on the first 2 issues, but then on the 3rd issue it has Tony Shasteen. The Frankenstein issues have Ibrahim Robertson for the first 2 issues, but then on the 3rd issue, they have Andy Smith and Keith Champagne. The only one of these miniseries that doesn't change artists throughout the 3 issues is the Batman one, which is Eduardo Rousseau the whole way through. But let's just ignore that and get straight into the first miniseries today, Deathstroke and the Curse of the Ravager, written by Jimmy Palmiotti with art by Joe Bennett and Tony Shasteen. The story begins on a ship known as the Ravager. Its captain is Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, because in the Flashpoint timeline, because the Atlanteans and the Amazons are fighting each other, Deathstroke just decided to become a pirate. Many criminals decided to become pirates and plunder the ocean just because they feel like it. I think it's cool that he named his ship after his son. It is probably clear that this is in memory of his son, who probably still died in this timeline. His first mate is a man named Briggs, and he sees this guy Warlord, his ship, the Skitaris. Warlord is a character from DC Comics who comes from this mystical realm called Skitaris, but in the Flashpoint timeline, he seems to just be a normal dude with kind of a Viking aesthetic, and his ship is called the Skitaris instead. Slade orders Brig to use his power to check the Skitaris. Brig has the ability to split from his sister, because his sister has a soul form that is inside him, and so she separates herself from him, and then he is useless without her. He's kind of like Mind Warp from the Secret 7 Flashpoint miniseries. So Brig's sister checks the Skitaris and sees that there is some kind of test tube with a woman in it, and Slade wants them to steal the test tube because he is looking for his daughter, Rose, and he thinks that maybe the Warlord has her. And then Slade clashes swords with the Warlord while Slade's crew fights against Warlord's crew. One of the crew members that we see is Zsaz, which is a little bit of a continuity error because Zsaz was in the Legion of Doom miniseries where he was a prisoner of the Legion of Doom and then he was killed by Plastic Man, so it doesn't really line up with this. However, we don't see him again for the rest of this miniseries, so it's not like it matters. Slade's crew successfully steals the test tube and Slade kicks Warlord off of his ship and makes it back to his own, and then he tells Icicle to use his ice cannon to freeze the Skitaris. So he does that. He not only freezes the Skitaris, he freezes the entire ocean surrounding them. However, the Warlord was able to get away on his little boat called the Tara, which I guess is supposed to be a reference to Tara Markov, which is weird because she exists in the Flashpoint timeline. So she is a person who exists and is alive and is also a ship. The Warlord has named a little boat after her. I don't know why he would name a boat after a character tied to somebody else. Slade discovers that the woman in the test tube is not his daughter Rose. It is somebody known as Jenny Blitz, who has the ability to blow things up. And then it's revealed that they successfully captured one of Warlord's crewmates, so Slade decides to torture the guy in order to get some information out of him. By torture, it means cutting his fingers off, as we see later, and we find out that Slade learnt from this guy that his daughter Rose was taken to St. Helena, which is a prison nearby. So they need to head there in order to secure Rose. And he heads to his room, and we see him picking up a photo of Rose. So Slade is a little bit more sympathetic in this miniseries than he is in the main continuity. They jump into a little dinghy to infiltrate St. Helena, where they kill some of the soldiers there, and Slade interrogates one of them, asking where Rose Wilson is, and he says that she's being held in Block 7 with the other metahumans, but she was transferred the day before to a lab in Norway. Slade doesn't decide to leave right away. Instead, he goes down to Block 7 where the metahumans are. He kills all of the soldiers and guards that are down there, and he gives all of the criminals a chance to join his crew, and they all agree. This includes Clayface. Clayface becomes a member of Slade Wilson's crew, and he says that he knows somebody that could help them. There is someone who is in solitary confinement named Sonar, who would have the ability to help them find museums and banks that are under the sunken ocean, and also help him find his daughter Rose. Slade also finds another metahuman known as Eel and frees him from captive and forces him to join his crew as well. And Eel tells Slade that Sonar has been taken away to a place called Mercy Reef, and he's currently on a slave ship called the Martha. So they intercept the Martha and ask the guard there to give them Sonar, and they take him and make him a part of their crew. As the crew drinks their way through the night, Briggs tells Slade that they are going to be heading into marked waters, and Slade knows exactly what that means. He's like, then I suggest you get a solid meal and you a good night's sleep. And we see that Aquaman and Orm are watching the oceans, and they see Slade's ship. And so Aquaman dives into the water and makes his way onto the Ravager. And he's like, you are enemies of the Atlanteans. So men, kill everyone. No survivors. And Arthur stabs Slade through the gut with his trident. And so a battle between Aquaman, Orm, and Slade's crew breaks out as this guy named Machis tries to attack Aquaman, but Aquaman just stabs him in the leg and then cuts off his head with an axe. At the same time, he's saying, man, I know we hate these humans, but I was hoping this wouldn't resort to killing. Like, as he kills this guy. Orm faces Tattooed Man, who creates some snakes out of his tattoos, throws them at Orm, but Orm throws his trident scepter thing, which stabs Tattooed Man in the stomach. However, he is still alive for now, except this guy named Scavenger messes everything up because he's too nervous while pointing his gun thing. He shoots a blast of what looks like lightning. He misses Aquaman and hits Tattooed Man instead by accident, killing him. It's pretty brutal. And then it gets even more brutal when Aquaman fights the Scavenger. The Scavenger is like begging for his life. He's like, I didn't even really want to do this. Like, I was forced to be a part of this crew. Punches him in the face, grabs the dude, snaps his body in half. Just folds him in half like Jason Voorhees. And then he goes for Clayface. He stabs Clayface with his trident. The two of them fall into the ocean. Orm faces Icicle, who creates a massive shield around himself, but Orm breaks it, sending Icicle falling below, and it cracks the test tube that Jenny Blitz is inside. Aquaman kills Clayface underwater. He keeps him under there so long that Clayface just falls to pieces. It's kind of sad. You know, I kind of like this Clayface. He seemed fine. He didn't seem like he was a bad dude. Meanwhile, Eel comes across Slade, and he's like, hey, you ain't looking too good, boss. And then Orm just kicks him. He's like, get out of my way! Arthur tells Orm that they're going to leave, and Orm is like, just let me kick him one more time. He kicks Slade, and then they leave them there to die. We then cut to the Warlord, who finds out that Slade has been attacked by Aquaman and Orm, and that it is now their chance to go and finish them off to get their revenge for what happened earlier. Briggs checks Slade's body and sees that Slade is in really bad condition. His healing factor isn't working properly. Meanwhile, Icicle wakes up and he's not feeling too good, but he's still alive. And Sonar is like, hey buddy, can you please free me? With my help, I can help you guys. I could probably help Slade if he's dying right now. They bring him out to Slade. Eel tries to help Slade using his electric powers, like a defibrillator. And although he heals the wound that Slade has, Slade still can't heal. And it's because he's got metal trapped underneath the scar. And so Sonar is like, hey, I can remove that metal for you so that your healing factor can work. But in return, you have to give me 50% of everything that you find. And you also have to make me second in command. And Slade agrees to this. So Sonar uses his powers to pull the metal out. Slade is able to heal. And then they get ready to go to Norway in order to find Rose. While they are sailing, they suddenly get hit by a cannon. And it's Warlord. He has shown up and has declared war against Slade's crew for the last time. Slade grabs his sniper rifle and he's like, I'm gonna shut him up once and for all. He shoots Warlord in the eye and then reveals to Briggs that he was trying to aim for his mouth. And then Slade tries to shoot Warlord's ship and then the ship just explodes. And you think that it's Slade that did this, but no, Slade did not do this. Somebody is blowing up the Warlord's ship. And it turns out that the one responsible is Jenny Blitz. She shows up, her powers flaring. The name's Jenny Blitz, but you can call me Captain. So it seems like her agenda is to take over Slade's crew, which wouldn't be very hard for her to do, given that she has very OP abilities. We then cut to a lewd moment with Jenny Blitz naked in the shower, only covered by steam as she talks to Deathstroke because Slade has some questions to ask about. He wants to learn more about her. She comes out of the shower, the steam is still barely covering her, and then she finally puts her clothes on, and that is when Slade says that he's not going to let Jenny go. He needs her help with finding his daughter in Norway to fight against this guy named the Caretaker, who is the one responsible for taking Rose. Jenny asks, what's in it for me? And Slade walks up to her, puts his hand on her face, like, for you? And then they start making out. And then immediately she slaps him in the face. It's like, you're old enough to be my dad. So she points out the weirdness of this. And then he makes another deal with Jenny instead, which is 50% of everything. And now Slade's crew feels like they're being cheated. And so they decide to start a mutiny against Slade. But not everybody is okay with this mutiny. Some of them are loyal to Slade, like this one guy. This poor dude, he's just loyal to Slade. And Eel kills him. And then he tells Icicle to go kill Briggs, because Briggs is too loyal to Slade as well. While the rest plan on fighting Slade and killing him. So Icicle finds Briggs. He asks Briggs if he wants to go for a break. And Briggs is like, nah, I'm all good. And Icicle's like, I agree. And he shoots Briggs with his ice powers, freezing him. And then he grabs an axe and he smashes Briggs to pieces, killing him. And Briggs' sister separates from his body, and she is going to die soon. And she sees the mutiny going on, and she's like, before I pass on to the afterlife with my brother, I need to go and tell Slade. So she goes and visits Slade and Jenny, who are obviously sleeping together now. And she warns Slade of the mutiny, and then passes on to the afterlife with her brother. It's really sad. I liked Briggs. He did not deserve that, and neither did his sister. The men gather around Slade and Jenny's quarters in order to kill them, and Slade and Jenny just blast through and start killing these guys, shooting them up, and Slade's like, stop, Jenny. I'm the one that needs to kill all these men because they're my crew members, and nobody starts a mutiny on my ship. And Icicle starts getting cold feet, which is funny because he's Icicle, and is like, I'm regretting this. This was a bad idea. We shouldn't have turned against Slade. Slade kills Eel, which is incredibly satisfying. I hated this guy. He just stabs him through the chest. Jenny punches Icicle, knocking him out, and then asks Slade what he wants her to do with Icicle, and Slade says that he wants her to kill him slow and painfully, and she blows up Icicle's head, which is pretty gnarly. And now it's just Sonar left, so Slade just shoots him in the leg and slits his throat so that he can't use his sound abilities, and Sonar says that his throat is going to heal soon, and he's already called the caretaker and told him that he's going to hand over Slade and Jenny. So the caretaker's going to be here any moment, and he's going to kill both of them, and they're not going to get Rose. And then Slade shoots Sonar and kills him, and the two of them decide to wait for the caretaker to arrive. And as the caretaker arrives, they see that Rose is on his ship, and Slade seemingly turns against Jenny by injecting her with some kind of knockout fluid or something that he just had on him, and he plans on handing Jenny over to the caretaker to have Rose in return. And he also reveals that he has a device, and he says, I've put a nuclear explosive on my ship, so if I set it off, it'll kill all of us. And so that makes the caretaker willing to talk to him. And he tells the caretaker, hey, I'll give you Jenny, you give me my daughter, we'll be off on our way. And so they free Rose. Rose immediately headbutts one of the caretaker's people and is like, you're all gonna pay for messing with my dad, like he's gonna kill all of you. And then she reunites with Slade, and Slade says that he wants the caretaker to let them sail away a certain amount. And the caretaker's like, we didn't agree with that. And Slade's like, well, if you don't agree to it, I'll blow up my ship. And Rose is on Slade's ship. And the caretaker is like, but if you blow up the ship, you're only going to kill your daughter. And he's like, wrong. And he presses a device, and it turns out to not be a nuclear explosive. It was just the device to open up the cell that Jenny is in. So she breaks out, and she gets her revenge against the caretaker. She starts blowing everything up, starts killing everybody there, and also Briggs' sister is there, I guess. So it seems like she didn't move on to the afterlife. It was just a trick. So she's able to get her revenge for her brother. Slade throws a grenade into the caretaker's cargo, blowing up his ship. Slade becomes submerged underwater and he thinks he's gonna die, but then he wakes up later because Rose was able to circle back and find him and save him. And so the two of them reunite finally, and they get to survive. It's one of the few Flashpoint series that has a happy ending. And Slade declares that he's never gonna let her out of his sight ever again, and she promises the same. And they sail off into the sunset. I enjoyed this miniseries quite a lot. It was a massive step up from the Outsider and Secret 7 tie-ins that we read last week. Yeah, this was good. I really enjoyed it. It was fun seeing Slade be a pirate alongside a bunch of other metahumans. The mutiny stuff was fun as well. And so now let's move on to the next miniseries, Frankenstein and the Creatures of the Unknown, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Ibrahim Robertson and Andy Smith. The story begins in 1942, where a group of American army men are traipsing their way through the North Atlantic looking for Germans, and they see something hidden under the snow, and they're like, what the hell is that? And then one of them gets shot because the Nazis have found them, so there's now gunfire going in between both groups, and an explosion opens up a hole in the snow, and a hand breaks through the ice. It is Frankenstein's monster, Victor Frankenstein's monster. He has a sword, and he's ready to kill some Nazis, because his entire mission is to eradicate evil, and he can see evil immediately. So he just starts cutting Nazis apart while Lieutenant Shreve watches. He was the guy leading the unit. 1 year later, Mr. Mazursky introduces Shreve and Frankenstein to his subjects. He's been doing experiments on people. One of them is his own daughter, Nina Mazursky. And then we've got Warren Griffith and Vincent Velcoro. And he has transformed all three of them into monsters. His daughter didn't sign up for this, but the other two did. He did this for his daughter in order to save her life because he said that she was going to die anyway. Vincent has become a vampire creature, while Warren has become a werewolf-type creature. Mazursky swears that the procedure is reversible and that as soon as they've done their job, which is to go out and kill Hitler, then he will reverse everything and make everybody normal, and they'll be able to go out and live with the rest of humanity. So they become the Creature Commandos, led by Shreve, and they infiltrate Hitler's base. They start killing all of the Nazis. They jump into Hitler's hidden silo. When they get inside, they come face to face with this guy named Baron Blitzkrieg, who is a superpowered Nazi supervillain. He starts giving a speech to Frankenstein, but before he can finish it, Frankenstein's just like, shut up, and stabs him through the chest with his sword, killing him. And then he breaks through the door, and we see Hitler himself and his officials, and Hitler starts shooting Frankenstein, and Frankenstein's like, yeah, I'm an abomination, but so are you, and you're the kind of people that I kill. And he walks up to Hitler and kills him, and Shreve watches, and he kind of looks horrified, which is hinting at the fact that maybe he isn't on the side of the monsters and that he's only on the side of Americans. Back at Metropolis, Mazursky plans on reversing the procedure, but then this guy named Robert Crane enters, and originally this guy was the original Robot Man, but in this timeline, he's an evil businessman who has no plans on reversing the experiments. Instead, he just wants to put them to sleep, because right now they're obsolete, but they might have use for them in the future. And that includes Frankenstein. But Frankenstein isn't going to go down easy, so he introduces him to his robot that he's built, which is G.I. Robot, also known as Jake, the Joint Action Killing Engine. He tells Jake to take down Frankenstein, and Frankenstein's like, hey, you can't kill me, nothing can. Kill you? You really think what you have is life? You're unnatural, unholy, and you deserve to be put down like the horror show that you are. And then he orders G.I. Robot to electrocute Frankenstein, which shuts down his brain and stuff and knocks him out. And then Frankenstein wakes up in a test tube. He breaks himself out, and then he breaks the other test tubes to free his fellow comrades. And as they exit the room, they come across a whole bunch of soldiers, and they also see a door with an S on it that has been broken open, and we know that that's where Superman was being held. They come across these soldiers. Warren kills them all, and Nina begs him to stop because she's against killing and she doesn't want him to kill, and Velcoro starts mocking them, saying that Warren has a crush on her. As they exit the facility, they realize that they are now in the year 2011. They've been asleep for 65 years, and they're gonna need to find Mazursky's lab, which is in Gotham City, specifically Slaughter Swamp, so they can find his notes and reverse the experiments that he did on them. Meanwhile, we get our first continuity error in this book, which is General Lane. In Flashpoint's timeline, when Clark Kent was a kid, General Lane got sucked into the Phantom Zone, and then when he emerged in the year 2011, he was killed immediately. But in this book, he is alive and well and has come to this facility and seems to be very prejudiced towards monsters, which just doesn't line up with his personality in the Superman comic, where he was a very nice guy. He says these monsters need to be eradicated, and he knows the perfect person to do it. And as he says that, we cut to Kirk Langstrom, aka Man-Bat, who gets stabbed through the chest by someone named Shreve, who we assume is the daughter of Lieutenant Shreve, or the granddaughter. I guess we'll find out. And it seems like she's some kind of monster hunter. We see some memories of Nina Mazursky when she was younger and being taught by her father, and he sees that she's looking quite sad and is like, maybe we should stop this for today. And as he leaves, she's like, no, don't leave me, I'm scared. He's like, Nina, there's nothing to be scared of, my love, nothing at all. Monsters. Oh, Nina, my dear, there are no such thing as monsters. And you never have to be afraid. It's a very lovely moment between father and daughter where you see that Mr. Mazursky really does love his daughter and cares about her more than anything. He didn't experiment on her for his own well-being. It really was for her well-being. And in the present day, the Frankenstein's group are in Gotham City, in Slaughter Swamp, looking for Mr. Mazursky's lab. Meanwhile, General Lane has met with Shreve, Dr. Crane, and Dr. Crane is reactivating G.I. Robot to send him after Frankenstein, and also Lane plans on sending Shreve after Frankenstein as well. And she's like, why would I team up with this robot and work for you? And he's like, as soon as you find out what your targets are, then you'll definitely work for me. And he calls her Junior, and she's like, if you call me Junior again, I'll take your eye. And she puts a knife up to his throat. It's like, I don't doubt you would, but why don't you save that energy for the mission? You'll need it. It's them, Shreve, the Great Creature Commandos. The Commandos find Mr. Mazursky's house, where Nina reveals that the reason she was experimented on was because she was born with weird lungs, and so her father used amphibians and stuff to turn her into her current form to save her life. They investigate his house, and Warren finds something underground, so he tears up the floor, and there's a bunch of water, and Nina and Frankenstein decide to dive into it and see if the lab is within there. So they go through, and Velcoro decides that he's going to get some air, and as he opens up the door, he comes face to face with a crossbow because Shreve and her men are here, and they want entrance into the building so that they can kill Frankenstein and the rest of the crew. Frankenstein and Nina make it to the bottom of the water where they find a hatch. They open it up, they enter it, and they find Mazursky's lab, and as they explore the lab, they find a book full of memories, and Frankenstein finds a bottle with the words Western Moat on it, and he's like, oh, that's weird. And then he also finds a map for Romania with an X on it. And so he's like, alright, now we know where we need to go next. And then we see that Shreve is fighting Velcoro and Griffith, and she throws a bunch of, it's like ninja stars, but they're crosses out Velcoro, so it starts burning him. And she's about to kill Velcoro, but then Frankenstein shoots her through the shoulder, and it is established why Shreve hates them so much. It's because they were responsible, or at least she blames them, for the death of her father and the rest of her family. Her father was so obsessed with the Creature Commandos that he ended up recruiting another set of Creature Commandos, which included characters like Dr. Phosphorus, Man-Bat, and Solomon Grundy. But unlike Frankenstein and the crew, these guys turned against her grandfather, killing him and the rest of her family while she was a kid. She came downstairs one night and just saw these monsters killing her family, and so now she blames all monsters for it. It's one of those stupid kind of situations where it's like, I blame you for something that you had nothing to do with because somebody else did it. It's trying to make her like xenophobic. She tries to shoot Nina, but Griffith jumps in the way and takes the bullet straight in the shoulder, while Velcoro saves Frankenstein from G.I. Robot. It's like, huh, look like you could use a hand, Frankie. Griffith! And they run over to see that Griffith is currently dying, and then all of a sudden, the heads of Shreve's men just get blown apart. And Frankenstein's like, oh, it can't be. And it's revealed that the one responsible was the bride of Frankenstein. We get to see Griffith's origin, where he gets injected with the stuff that turns him into a werewolf by Mr. Mazursky, and at the same time, this is the first time that Griffith meets Nina Mazursky, and then we cut back to the present, where Frankenstein reunites with the bride, and she explains the whole situation to him, where she came alongside her own group called Shade, and that shit's going down in Europe between the Atlanteans and the Amazons, and so she's gonna need Frankenstein's help to go there. But Frankenstein's like, I gotta help my friend Nina and my other friends. We gotta find the lab so that we can turn them back to normal. and the Bride says, alright, I'll help your friends get to Romania, and then you come with me to Europe afterward. And Shriver's like, I'm not gonna let you do that, I'm gonna kill you all because of what you did to my father. And the Bride explains to her that the Creature Commandos had nothing to do with that, and that it was General Lane that did it the entire time. He ordered those monsters to turn against Lieutenant Shreve because he was jealous of Shreve, like he hated the guy. And this finally convinces his granddaughter to ally herself with Frankenstein and his group. Jake is revealed to still be alive, and General Lane sends him after Frankenstein and the group to Romania in order to kill them. They arrive in Romania, and when they get there, they find a whole bunch of dead bodies, but not just regular bodies, vampires, werewolves, and then Jake shows up. He stabs Velcoro through the chest, and so Frankenstein and the Bride have to fight Jake while Nina and Shreve take Griffith over to this castle where they see a moat, and it's within the moat that Nina sees these people that look like her, and she starts to put two and two together, and then she comes face to face with her father, who is still alive somehow, and he explains to them that many years ago in 1935, he came here to Romania with a group of dudes, and they found these werewolf and vampire people, and the people that look like Nina Mazursky, and his men just immediately opened fire on them, and they all got slaughtered by these monsters, but they treated and cared for Mazursky because he showed them compassion and didn't immediately attack them. So he then started taking some of their genetics so that he could take them back home. But when he got back home, he was forced to use the genetics to create the Creature Commandos. At this point, Nina realizes that she was never human to begin with. She realizes that she was a member of this species, and her father admits, yes. So I found you as this baby amphibian person, and I was so lonely, and you were so small and beautiful, and I just felt this compulsion to take you and have you be my daughter. And then he felt terrible for lying to her this entire time. And then he realizes that Griffith is currently in trouble because he's been shot with a silver bullet, so he's got to get him to his lab right now so that he can fix him, while Frankenstein and the Bride fight Jake. And there's a little bit of weird sizing when it comes to Frankenstein, because sometimes when he's fighting Jake, he's really small, and sometimes he's almost the size that Jake is. Mr. Mazursky decides that the only way to save Griffith is to turn him back to normal, because then the bullet won't kill him anymore. And so that's what he decides to do. The sun starts rising in Romania, which is not good for Velcoro, because even though he seems to be dead, the sun will definitely kill him. Frankenstein starts getting electrocuted by Jake, and that's when Velcoro saves him. He jumps onto the back of Jake and starts ripping him to pieces while the sun is burning him, and he's like, I don't have much time left, you gotta finish him off, Frankenstein. Frankenstein jumps up, he stabs the sword through Jake's head. This is where Frankenstein looks way bigger at this point than he did in the previous panel. Like, look how small he looks here, and then how big he looks here. But they have successfully destroyed Jake, and Velcoro dies, having sacrificed himself, which is pretty sad. Meanwhile, Griffith turns back into a human, and Nina believes that he's not interested in her anymore because she's still a monster. And he's like, no, you're just as beautiful as the first time I saw you. Will you stay here with me? We can finally stop running. You're my home, Nina. And Nina tries to get Frankenstein to stay as well, and Frankenstein's like, I can't. I promised I'd go with the Bride. My job isn't over. I still need to bring peace to the land and take out all evil, and that includes going to Europe to fight the Atlanteans and the Amazonians, and that's exactly what he does. So our final panel is Frankenstein, Shreve, and the Bride all riding off to save the world. I enjoyed this miniseries, though it doesn't really feel much like an alternate timeline than it does just a Creature Commando series. Like, this could have very easily taken place in the main DC timeline. It makes a couple of references to Flashpoint, but is otherwise very separate from that, and even has a continuity issue with Sam Lane, so I don't think Jeff Lemire was trying to make things line up within Flashpoint. And so now we move on to the final miniseries for this week, Batman Night of Vengeance, written by Brian Azzarello with art by Eduardo Rousseau. So we immediately jump into this timeline's version of Batman. In this timeline, Bruce Wayne was the one who was shot and killed, and not Thomas and Martha Wayne. And so Thomas Wayne is the Batman of this timeline. He owns a casino, and he uses the casino to draw criminals to him so that he can kill them. And he's killed a lot of criminals. He's killed Sal Maroni. It's later mentioned that he killed the Scarecrow and Poison Ivy as well. But he hasn't killed the Joker. He's still looking for the Joker. But right now, he's having an interview with his psychiatrist. He's trying to get a pass on insurance. And he doesn't have the patience to sit through an entire interview, so he manages to convince her to just give him a pass. And then as she leaves, the Penguin enters because he's working with Thomas Wayne in this timeline, helping him with his casino. They start talking about Sal Maroni and how Maroni's men are in the casino, and Thomas is like, don't chase them away. I want to keep tabs on them so I can deal with them later. And then he heads outside where he meets with Commissioner Gordon, because much like Bruce Wayne in the regular timeline, Thomas Wayne works alongside Commissioner Gordon in this timeline. However, they're less friendly than Bruce and Jim are. Thomas is very unfriendly with everyone. He's a big asshole throughout this series. The Dents have lost their children. Their children have been kidnapped by the Joker, and Thomas just seems to be pissed off at the Dents, even though it's understandable that they really want to find the Joker. And Harvey says that if the Batman, or if the Gotham department doesn't find the Joker and save his kids, then he will shut down the casinos, like he'll shut down everything. And Thomas was thinking about punching Harvey in that moment, but he refrained himself from doing it. And then he and Jim have a conversation. He's like, this world is a bad place. If you could change it, would you, Thomas? That's what I signed up for. And Thomas asks him if he has anything on Joker's whereabouts, and Jim explains that some people have been going missing, that they've been dragged into hell by something, and by into hell he means into the sewers. I like how Thomas Wayne in his Batcave, he still has a T-Rex, just like Bruce does in his Batcave, so there are some similarities between both Batmans. Both of them ended up fighting a robotic T-Rex. All that's missing is the giant penny, which I can't seem to see. Thomas heads down into the sewers where he finds bones, and he hears somebody saying, hell, hell, and they're saying, help me. And while he's making his way through the sewers, we see that Killer Croc is watching him, and he looks a lot like the Batman Arkham version of Killer Croc. But as Thomas finds the people being held captive by Croc, he appears behind Thomas and tries to attack him with a machete, and Thomas fights back with a metal pipe that he found, I guess, and he whacks the machete out of Croc's hand, but Croc grabs him by the throat and slams him into the water, and while he is being drowned underwater, we see Thomas's flashbacks to when Bruce was murdered by Joe Chill. Thomas manages to poke out Croc's eye, freeing himself, and then he grabs Croc's machete, and as Croc lunges for him, he stabs the machete through Croc's head, killing him, because this Batman kills his criminals. He has no problem with just killing Killer Croc outright, and he saves the people stuck in the sewers. And then we cut to the Joker, who has Dent's children held captive, and the Joker is saying that they are going to play house because there's 3 of them. One of them's going to be Daddy, one of them will be the baby, and the mummy will have fun. And then he'll show up. And the Joker is obviously referring to Thomas Wayne, the Batman. Jim calls Oswald to get updates on the current Joker investigation, and then he goes to visit the Oracle, who in this timeline is Selina Kyle. She's in a wheelchair and she's become the Oracle. They don't really explain why she's in a wheelchair and why she is Oracle. She just is, because I guess it's an alternate timeline and she needed to be something different. We also learned that Barbara Gordon doesn't exist in this timeline because Jim never married and had kids. He learns from Selina that a body was recently found that was clearly the work of the Joker, so Jim decides to go off on his own and find the car, because it was apparently a pizza delivery guy that was killed, and when Jim finds the car, it's empty, and then he calls Thomas Wayne and says that somebody had been killed by the Joker, but it wasn't one of Harvey's kids, so he doesn't need Batman to get involved. He'll deal with it, and we see that Jim has arrived at Wayne Manor, and that he's going to enter it, and we know that the Joker is currently in there with Dent's children. And the Joker's just being the Joker, taping up the little boy's mouth and saying, "What happens if you lose all joy and fear? Well then, you go crazy." Thomas heads to a bar to interrogate Detective Bullock and Renee Montoya because he believes that they know something. He starts beating up Bullock, and Renee is like, "Stop doing that. We'll show you what happened. We'll tell you what happened." The Joker showed up here with a pizza. He's doing a pizza delivery. And nobody was stupid enough to take a slice except this one guy. He's down in the basement right now. Thomas goes down into the basement. He sees this guy who ate the pizza. The pizza was laced with Joker toxin or something. So now this guy is laughing maniacally. And Renee is like, "Can we do anything to save him?" And Thomas is like, "No, we can't." And he snaps the guy's neck and says, "Blame it on me." It's pretty brutal. As he drives away, he gets in contact with Selina, and Selina lets him know that Jim has taken things upon himself to look for the Joker, and Thomas is like, "Oh no, we gotta find out where he is right now." We see Jim infiltrating Wayne Manor. He hears some kind of laughter coming from within a room. He opens up the door and he sees the Dent son with his mouth gagged, and he sees what he thinks is the Joker pointing guns at him, and he shoots at the Joker, but it turns out it's not the Joker. He has just shot Harvey Dent's daughter, and he realizes, like, "Oh no, don't die, please don't die." And that is when the Joker comes up to Jim and slits his throat. It's like, she won't listen. They never do. Thomas then receives a video message of Harvey Dent's son wearing Jim's glasses, and he realizes what's going on, and he sees video of Jim crawling over to his gun, trying to grab it, but the Joker steps on the gun, and Jim bleeds out and dies, and Thomas is like, "No, no, no, damn," and he jumps out of his Batmobile, he runs into the Wayne Manor, he's like, "Ugh, what have you done this time, Martha?" And it's revealed that the Joker in this timeline is, surprise, surprise, Martha Wayne. Unfortunately, it's too late to save Jim, but it's not too late to save the daughter. She's still alive. Thomas pours salt on her wounds and takes off the tape, and she says that she feels cold. And that is when we start getting flashbacks of what happened to Bruce. He got shot, and Thomas is like, "You gotta get help, Martha. Get somebody, please, just for Christ's sakes, get help." She quickly runs off to go and get help, and the cops arrive. But unfortunately, Bruce doesn't make it, and Martha is just like, "No!" Like, this is not the situation that any parent wants to be in. And in the present day, Martha has a hammer, and she's hitting Thomas over the head repeatedly, and he's just kind of letting her. He's just taking it because he's too busy thinking back to these memories of Thomas and Martha dealing with Bruce's death, and Thomas just being like, "I want to see your smile again. Martha, I have an idea." She's like, "What, Thomas?" And we see that Thomas is like paying off criminals and stuff in order to find the location of Joe Chill. He finds Joe Chill and he kills him, just beating him up repeatedly. And as he's beating up Joe Chill in the present day, it cuts in between Martha beating Thomas with a hammer. Thomas returns to tell Martha the great news. He's killed Joe Chill and gotten revenge. But Martha reveals that she's gone insane. She's cut her mouth open, similar to the Heath Ledger Joker in the Dark Knight series. "I understand, Thomas. See? I'm smiling." And that's how Martha Wayne became the Joker. In the present, she's continuing to hit Thomas with a hammer until Thomas finally grabs her hand and they jump through a nearby window, and she starts messing with him. Like, liar, too angry to be self-aware. I wish you just didn't exist. And Thomas is like, you want to go there? What if I told you that there was a timeline where we died? Like, we were supposed to die originally. There were 2 gunshots. The Waynes died. Our son lived. What happened? What if I told you I could make that a reality again? Like, should I? Promise me, Thomas, you will. I do. Tell me about Bruce. What does he do after we're dead? He follows in his father's footsteps. He's a doctor? No. Oh God. And after hearing this, Martha just starts running away because the idea of her son becoming Batman terrifies her, especially because she thinks that her son is going to be like him, like Thomas's Batman, where he's going to be killing people. Maybe if she knew that her son wouldn't be a killer, she would have been more okay with it. But she just starts running off. She falls down into a hole. A whole bunch of bats emerge from it, and Thomas tries to grab her hand, but he misses it. And it turns out she's fallen into a bat cave, which is ironic. And she dies. She falls to her death. All because she found out that her son was doomed to become Batman as well. And that is where the miniseries ends. Pretty grim and sad. Just a bad ending for Thomas Wayne in general. Thomas and Martha. Definitely one of the more depressing endings of these miniseries. However, still really good. I really enjoyed this miniseries. It's definitely up there as one of my favorites, even though it was dark and edgy. This is Thomas Wayne Batman. It's supposed to be dark and edgy, and it was well written, unlike the other dark and edgy miniseries I read, like Legion of Doom. Yeah, this is shaping out to be a good week of miniseries, much better than last week's. I'm glad that these miniseries were a lot better, and I'm hoping you enjoyed them too. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week for more World of Flashpoint, because we're not done yet. We still got quite a few to get through. Have a good one.